Alright, folks, so we're going to be talking about Alexander the Great, one of the great conquerors in the history of the world today. So, I believe this is your 5G notes. I'm not sure on that, so if I'm wrong, just go ahead and find your notes that say Alexander the Great and go from there. Alright, so who the heck is Alexander the Great? Well, the first thing we got to understand about Alexander the Great is we got to understand who his dad was. Okay, so his name is Philip II of Macedonia. So you might see it pronounced Macedonia. You might see it pronounced Macedonia. We're going to go Macedonia. We said Macedonia last year, so let's just mix it up. Alright, so Philip II of Macedonia, he assumes the throne of Macedonia in 359 BCE. Okay, so if you look on your map of Greece, this is Greece right here. Okay, and don't write anything yet, you're just looking. But this is Greece right here. Macedonia is this area above Greece. So the Macedonians aren't really considered Greek by the Greeks. Like the Athenians and the Spartans, they kind of view Macedonians as kind of barbarians or kind of not as civilized as the Greeks. So Philip kind of changes this around. He uses his skill as a general to turn his soldiers, his peasants, into a well-trained army. So he does a couple things. He makes the spears in the phalanx longer. So remember the phalanx was that unit of formation of battle that the Spartans and the Greeks went into battle with. So Philip actually kind of makes the phalanx a little more mobile. He lengthens the length of the spears. He adds cavalry, which is horses, to the army. And he does a lot of kind of little tweaks like that that make this Macedonian fighting force absolutely devastating. So he's going to defeat the Greeks at Chaeronea. This will end Greek independence, and now Philip II is basically the king of Greece. And he's going to let them retain local government and kind of control over their local affairs. So again, another theme in this class is that when a successful empire conquers someone, they usually let that that group of people maintain their religions, their local affairs, and that's usually the best way to kind of run things. That way they're not trying to constantly overthrow you, even though they might try and do so anyway. So, Philip II is going to be assassinated in 336 BCE. There's a whole story behind that, but we're not going to go into it. I'll talk about it in class. But Alexander the Great is Philip's son. Okay, Alexander's a pupil of Aristotle. He learned from Aristotle. He was taught by Aristotle. And Alexander the Great's a smart guy. He's a very adequate general. He's a very smart military mind. Okay, he secures Greece, and then he wants to get revenge on the Persians because he still hasn't forgiven those Persians for invading not only Greece but also Macedonia. Okay, because the Persians went overland through Macedonia, and Alexander wants to get revenge on the Persians. And it also gives Greece kind of a good way to unify Greece, right? They just took it over, but now if they focus all their attention on an external enemy, which is Persia, then maybe instead of fighting amongst themselves, they can focus that energy on a common enemy. Now, these are all kind of statues of Alexander the Great, but I thought it would be interesting to see how Mr. Nolan would look as Alexander the Great. Who knows, maybe even Mr. Nolan could be a long-lost descendant of the great conqueror Alexander the Great. Seems unlikely, though. Alright, so we quickly will conquer Anatolia, which is this area called Asia Minor. He quickly conquers Egypt, and he's going to move all the way to the Indus River. Okay, so the Indus River here. He's going to conquer a huge spread of territory. In Egypt, he's known as a pharaoh. He's viewed as a liberator. One of the key things is he establishes the city of Alexandria in Egypt. Okay, so this will be a center of trade and Hellenistic culture. Okay, the big library at Alexandria, eventually it will get burned down, but it was kind of one of the wonders of the ancient world, the library at Alexandria. Big center of trade and culture. Alright, so eventually Alexander is going to conquer all of Persia. He will make it all the way to India, but unfortunately he dies of a sudden illness in 323 BCE, and his empire will fracture quickly after that. So why is he significant? Alright, well he's significant because this creation of an empire, he wanted to blend Persian, Greek, and Egyptian cultures. Okay, so this idea becomes Hellenistic culture. Okay, so he kind of blends the Greeks with the Persians, with the Egyptians, And kind of the mixing and matching of these cultures is going to spread trade. It's going to allow new ideas to flourish. It's going to allow old ideas to be spread along trade routes. Okay, and it's going to actually um, allow for a kind of a modern empire that's going to lead into the Roman Empire. Okay, so Alexander actually saw himself as kind of the second coming of Cyrus the Great, who was the great Persian conqueror. Remember, he started that whole Persian Empire, and he kind of united a large chunk of territory. Well, Cyrus was actually very well regarded by the Greeks. They respected him a lot more than someone like Xerxes. And Alexander kind of visited that tomb as he was conquering. He paid his respects. So Alexander kind of saw himself as blending these Persian and Greek cultures together. So that's what Hellenistic culture is. All right, so that's kind of the significance of his conquests. And thank you once again for watching the video. This has been Mr. Grimsland. And as always, I don't even have to say it anymore because we should just know it by now. But this is Mr. Grimsland signing off. Mr. Nolan does indeed have smelly feet.